Hello YouTube, it's Adam Noyce here, and I was actually going to do a different video. Oh my god, I gotta tell you the history of this video because it's outrageous. I was originally going to do a review for a movie that I just watched called Contagion. And it was really good, and I was going to do a review about that. And then I watched J. Edgar for the first time right after, and I was like, hey, I actually like J. Edgar a little bit more than Contagion, so I'm going to review that. So you'll probably wind up seeing a video of my thoughts of Contagion, which is a pretty decent movie. But today I'm here to talk about J. Edgar because, you know, I actually thought it was really good, and I was actually a bit let down by the fact that it wasn't very successful. Like, critics had mixed reviews of the movie, and I personally really liked it. It definitely has its flaws, but, you know, I was overall really impressed with this movie. Of course, judging by the title, I learned a lot about J. Edgar Hoover from watching this movie, and it is pretty accurate given what we know. I mean, this film does speculate a lot on what we know of J. Edgar Hoover. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't really know too much about him. This movie actually I mean, I knew of him. I know he started the FBI, but I mean, I didn't really know much about himself, and this movie really introduced me to him and made me do some further research. And though this movie does take some liberties, you know, it's still pretty good, and it's still pretty accurate. I mean, one thing that I really hail about this movie is you really feel like you're in the 30s, and you really feel like you're in the 60s, which I do hail about that. And that's actually something that I think is of course, this is the latest film directed by Clint Eastwood. And, you know, one of the things that I think he does really well in pretty much all of his, like, period films is he really makes you feel like it's in that decade and not a film being made in 2000 that's supposed to take place in, like, 1933. He does really good with this. I mean, all the uniforms are correct, the weapons were correct, and even where they were shooting, like, the villages and stuff like that, I did not feel like this is really 2011 trying to look like the 30s. I genuinely felt like it was the 30s, just by the way how Leonardo DiCaprio carried J. Edgar, and, well, so on and so forth. Let's see, what else can I talk about? It was a really interesting film, I'll say that, because there were parts of the movies where I was like, hey, this makes a lot of sense and I kind of like it. But then there was parts where I didn't feel like it was coherent. And a lot of that took place once Martin Luther King Jr. comes into picture. When J. Edgar is openly opposed to him, it really just kind of gets really messy and choppy. It really feels like this movie was supposed to be a lot longer, but I don't think it really was, because Clint Eastwood usually doesn't do that, and it really sort of fell apart towards the last act. Yeah, I mean, it was okay. I mean, the first two acts are just really good, and it really made me interested watching the movie just as itself. And I guess I'll just talk about Leonardo DiCaprio as J. Edgar. I actually have a slight complaint with him as J. Edgar. One, he looks just like J. Edgar when he's younger, but when he gets when he gets older and you have that great, I'm not saying it's bad makeup, because it is really great, and you could not you could not tell me that was all prosthetics. I mean, it genuinely looked like skin, and so on and so forth. But he didn't really look like J. Edgar when he grew older, during all the present scenes, because most of this movie takes place in flashback. But when he's older, he doesn't really look like the actual J. Edgar. If you put like two side-by-side pictures of him, you cannot tell me that that's supposed to be J. Edgar. He doesn't really look like him. But that was my only complaint, because I really think Leonardo DiCaprio did a great job in this movie. It really showed to me that Leonardo DiCaprio can still act. I mean, this and Inception have been like the only two movies that I've really liked him in. I'll be completely honest at that. And he did a very good job in this movie as J. Edgar. I think he really did his research, and also Clint Eastwood, definitely being a good director, he knows what he was doing. And so it really paid off in the long run, other than the fact that he didn't look like an older J. Edgar. that is my only complaint with his performance. I mean, just everything he does. I mean, he's really well put together. I mean, I really like his dialogue. I really like his sort of persona that he gives off. He definitely get a sense of his dedication to his work that you see in this, and he's really well done. And Leonardo DiCaprio really should have at least been nominated for a couple awards. I'm not sure if he was or not, but he should have been nominated for a couple awards, at least nominated, because he really did a fantastic job here as J. Edgar. Now, on to another character that I really like, played by Armie Hammer or something like that. I think it was Armie Hammer, but he played Clyde Tolson, and I really liked him. He did a very good job. One thing that I really like about him, and this is just Mr. Hammer in general, he has a really good voice. Like he can really. I think he's more of a he should be more of a voice actor than on a screen actor. I mean, he didn't do bad in this movie at all. Like, I thought he did extremely well. And that was one thing that I really liked about Clint Eastwood, is that he focused a lot on his eyes. Like, every single shot that he's in, you're drawn to his eyes. And I think that was done intentionally by Clint Eastwood. But he did a fantastic job. And, okay, I might as well just bring it up. This is pretty much the cold thing in the room, I guess you can say it as. The homosexuality part of this movie, or the relationship between J. Edgar and Clyde Tolson, or Clyde Tolson? Yeah, Clyde Tolson. No one knows if that's true or not. And this is where the movie really takes some liberties. Like, the significant liberties is here. Because there's some historians who said, yes, he was having a sexual relationship with Mr. Tolson, J. Edgar. And then some historians said that never happened at all. They were just unbelievably close friends. Either way, I wouldn't care, because apparently people were actually in an uproar that they made J. Edgar look homosexual. Well, I'm sitting there in the audience going, well, I don't give two shits, because even if he is, he did some really great things for this country. And anyways, I'm not against homosexuality at all anyways. And I gotta say this right now, this film's relationship between J. Edgar and Clyde Tolson is really touching. I mean, here I am watching it, and I'm actually getting touched by this relationship. And by far, the scene where, I mean, without a doubt, the scene where they really go at it is when they just get done from horse racing, and then J. Edgar says, "I really care for you," and then all of a sudden, Clyde just says to J. Edgar, "I love you," and J. Edgar just says he's been sleeping with this other actress. Forgot her name. What was her name? Something Lamore, I think. Yeah, Dorothy Lamore, and that was her name. And he gets really upset by this, and it's really, really well carried out. And then all of a sudden they start fighting, and Clyde is like, "You've made a fool of me," and it was really, really touching. And then all of a sudden, and this is, I think actually this is probably my favorite scene in the movie. I know that sounds weird, but I think this scene is my favorite scene in the movie. And they get fighting, and they're throwing stuff at each other. J. Edgar says a line like, "Oh, your shoes, be careful of your shoes," which that made me laugh. And then Clyde eventually gets the upper hand over J. Edgar, and he kisses him. And there is this one shot where you see it's a low angle shot, or it's a high angle shot actually, looking down at J. Edgar looking up, and Clyde is still kissing him, and it's a forced kiss, and the forced kisses are always awkward. But if you look at J. Edgar's eyes, and this is all Leonardo DiCaprio's performance, his eyes look weird, and then all of a sudden they relax, and it looks almost like he's at peace for a second. And that's all it has to do with the performances, and of course the great directing by Clint Eastwood. And it was really, really, I just liked that scene, and it had so much weight and so much emotion in it, and it didn't even last 5 minutes. And it just sums up the relationship in a in a nutshell. And I was really happy with it. And then again with the relationship at the ending, where Leonardo J. Edgar kisses Tolson on the forehead right before the last scene of the movie and says, I love you, or I couldn't live without you. This is really touching, you guys. I don't care what you say. The relationship between J. Edgar and Clyde in this movie is one of the best relationships I have ever seen on film. I mean, I'd put it right up there with the relationship between Jack Hawkins and... Jack Hawkins. The people... God damn, that's bugging me. What was it? The two on Treasure Planet. Well, not Treasure Planet, but Treasure Island. There was the kid, and then there was... Oh, yeah. Jimbo and Silver. There we go. God damn. And, I just think the relationship's really well. I mean, it was one of the best relationships between two characters I've ever seen in a movie. And that's really, really well done. I don't know, it might not be accurate at all. It might be accurate. I don't know. But all I care about is that it was done really well in this movie. And then, of course, we have Naomi Watts as Helen Gandy. And I love Naomi Watts anyways. I mean, Naomi Watts is really cool. And she's always just so... Every time she's in a movie, it's just... You know it's her. And I mean, that's not a bad thing either. She's just so good in this movie as Miss Gandy. And at first you think that she's going to be the person that J. Edgar's going to fall for. No, not at all. And it's really... nice, and her makeup was extremely well done. She actually looked like Miss Gandy in real life, and her makeup was really good. She genuinely looked old, and she also has a very sexy voice. You can't deny that. She was pretty good. So those are the three characters I just wanted to bring up in this review, anyways, or in this sort of analysis of the movie. Now I'm going to start complaining about the movie a little bit. The thing that drove me up the wall on this movie, and I hate this because this is the one thing I don't like about Clint Eastwood's directing. I don't like Clint Eastwood's style of cinematography, if he even calls it cinematography. The only movie that I've seen that type of cinematography and genuinely liked it, that he directed, there was two movies. There's Letters from Iwo Jima and Gran Torino. In this movie, the cinematography, 9 times out of 10, was horrible. I mean, the cinematography in this movie is atrocious. The camera's shaking around all over the place. For Christ's sakes, I saw steadier shots in Cloverfield. The cinematography in this movie is atrocious. And I mean atrocious. I mean, it felt like it was just the camera thrown there at last second. It looked like there was no time put into it. And it was horrible. And that is really the horrible thing about this movie, is the cinematography. My eye could not be kept on screen every single frame, which is how, you know, movies should be. Movies should be the way where every single shot is meticulously set up. And your eye you can't look away from the screen because you're afraid you're going to miss something. On the case of this, you could totally be doing something else, looking somewhere else, and you wouldn't be missing anything because it's all in the dialogue, which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the dialogue. I mean, screenplay's great. But the main thing that's horrible about this movie is the cinematography, and it just drives me up the fucking wall. Absolutely up the fucking wall. And, you know, I haven't been this mad about cinematography in a long time, because I like Clint Eastwood, and Clint Eastwood's a great director. And I'm sitting down watching this, I'm like, yeah, this is screaming Clint Eastwood, but what the fuck are you doing with the camera, Clint? You're doing a horrible job. And it is, it makes me so mad. And if it wasn't for the fact that the screenplay was so good and the acting was so good and so on and so forth, and I thought the historical period piece was really good, the cinematography would totally ruin this movie for me. It made me so mad just sitting down and watching this movie. But that's about it for my complaints. Wow, this is actually kind of a shorter analysis than normal. Usually these analyses wind up being like 30 minutes long. Oh, great. It was overall, it was a really good movie. I mean, I feel really bad because some of the critiques on this movie were extremely harsh. And I mean extremely harsh. I mean, yeah, I was really harsh on the cinematography piece, but that was pretty much it. I think it's a very good movie. Overall, it's a very good movie. It's just the cinematography just fucking wants me to make myself shoot. It just makes me want to shoot myself. And it's a pretty good movie. Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 out of 4 stars, which I think that's a little too nice. But, you know, most of them were like 1 star, 1 star, 2 stars. Oh my god, this movie's horrible. And I didn't get that at all. So, in the end, I give J. Edgar... I gotta think about this. I was gonna give it 3.5, but watching it again, I don't think it deserves 3.5. I'll give J. Edgar 3 out of 4. It's a nothing to be ashamed of 3 out of 4. It probably would have gotten 3.5 if it wasn't for the fact that the cinematography is so bad. But it's still a pretty damn good movie to sit down and watch. It is not for the happy customer, though. Like, if you're in a good mood, don't watch J. Edgar. You need to be in kind of a bad mood to watch J. Edgar, because the movie is not very happy at all. So, that was my thoughts of the film J. Edgar. Overall, really, really good film. So, it gets 3 out of 4 stars. It's nothing to be ashamed of at all. That's still pretty good. And future videos coming up soon, I guess, or I'm working as hard as I can on them. And so thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching this review, and sayonara.